Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining me for this Facebook Live town hall. Today, I'm joined by Susan Gaines, an IRS congressional liaison who's here to share the current status of the economic impact payments and to provide information on IRS services related to the COVID-19 pandemic. Our office has received several very specific questions about the different aspects of the economic impact payments with the first CARES Act. So thank you, Susan, for joining us. Before we hear from Susan, I wanted to remind viewers that our office is taking calls 7 days a week, and we're here to help you. You can call us at 630-549-2190 or send a message through the website at underwood.house.gov. And my team will put that information in the chat box so that you have it here throughout the conversation. I'd also like to mention last week, I traveled to Washington, D.C. to cast an important vote on the latest coronavirus relief package, the HEROES Act, which if passed in the Senate and signed into law by the president, it would bring over $36 billion to Illinois for essential services like first responders, education, healthcare, and aid for small businesses. The HEROES Act would help Illinois. It would allocate $75 billion in resources to expand coronavirus testing and treatment and build contact tracing workforce so we can safely reopen our economy. It included my legislation to ensure veterans will not have out-of-pocket costs for coronavirus preventive services, including a vaccine once it's available. The bill eliminates the limitation on the deduction for state and local taxes, aka SALT deductions, for 2020 and 2021. It expands emergency paid sick and family leave for coronavirus-related sickness and provides resources to provide premium pay to essential workers. The HEROES Act provides adults with an additional $1,200 economic impact payment and includes a fix that I've been fighting for that would allow more children to qualify for the payment. This would include all dependents aged 23 and under who are full-time students. The $500 payment under the CARES Act was previously only available to children under 17. The HEROES Act also strengthens the Paycheck Protection Program by expanding it to more employers, including chambers of commerce, farm bureaus, and other community organizations that play an essential role in our Illinois economy. And the legislation provides resources to keep Illinois connected by saving the United States Postal Service, supporting remote learning for our students, and ensuring seniors in nursing homes have access to telehealth services and virtual visits with their loved ones. I'm sure you have some questions about the HEROES Act, and I'll be happy to take those later in the conversation. But at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Susan to introduce herself and to share an update on the IRS's work to get the economic impact payments to the Illinoisans who need them. Thank you for joining us today, Susan, and welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Congresswoman Underwood, and hello, viewers. I really appreciate the opportunity to join you all today. As the Congresswoman stated, I am a congressional district liaison with the Internal Revenue Service, and I've been with the IRS for, over 30 years now. I'm here today to discuss the IRS's response to the coronavirus pandemic, and then specifically to address some of your questions related to the economic impact payments. Now, the IRS is working as quickly as possible to implement all the important tax-related provisions in the CARES Act, especially these economic impact payments. The IRS has also been very busy implementing business tax relief, such as the 2 new employer tax credits for sick and family leave and employee retention. And the IRS is here helping taxpayers through some administrative relief as well, such as the automatic postponement of the deadline for individuals to file and pay federal income taxes. Those with tax returns that are normally due on April 15th now have until July 15th, 2020 to file and pay their taxes. Also through July 15th, the IRS is postponing our installment agreement and offering compromise payments. We're suspending liens and levies, and we're limiting certain enforcement activities such as audits. We're also modifying our operations to ensure the safety for both taxpayers and our IRS workforce by temporarily discontinuing our face-to-face services throughout the country. Our phone lines are starting to reopen now, but continue to have very limited service. And we've also had to scale back all of our mail processing functions to comply with all the social distancing recommendations. And while the IRS is still receiving and storing mail, we have reduced our responses to paper correspondence, and we have yet to begin processing paper returns that were received within the last 2 months. We are continuing to process electronic tax returns. We're still issuing refunds, and we're still accepting electronic payments. Also, currently a record number of IRS employees are teleworking, some who have never teleworked before. The IRS is committed to sharing information as quickly as possible about all the tax issues that relate to the coronavirus, especially these economic impact payments. And as with all tax issues, the best way to get information on any subject related to coronavirus tax relief is to go to our website, irs.gov, where we have a specific coronavirus information page. The IRS is doing our best to also protect taxpayers against coronavirus scams. We urge you to be on guard against any calls or email phishing attempts related to the coronavirus. As a reminder, the IRS will not call you or email you and ask you to verify or provide your financial information so that you can get your economic impact payment or refund faster. Now, I know that was quite a bit of information, more than a mouthful, actually, but I will stay with you all for the next 20, 30 minutes and try to answer some of the questions you may have.
Well, thank you, Susan. That was a lot of good information that you shared. So let's break some of this down. If someone hasn't received their economic impact payment yet, what should they do?
That's a good question, and we're hearing that a lot, of course. They should first go to the IRS website, irs.gov. Look at the top of the page, and there's a Get My Payment option. It's an online tool that will provide them with more information once their payment's been scheduled. Also, everyone is going to receive a letter about their payment that will include how it was sent, whether it was a paper check or a direct deposit, and when it was sent. If their payment's already been sent and it's been a couple weeks and they didn't receive it, then they can call the phone number on that notice to inquire about it.
Okay. And then if someone received a payment for a deceased relative, what should they do?
Our current guidance says that those payments should be returned to the IRS. If you go to the coronavirus page on irs.gov and look for the economic impact payment frequently asked questions, then there's a couple questions that address that. Question 10 discusses the payments and why they should be returned, and question 52 discusses how to return the payment.
Okay, so it definitely needs to be returned, and details on how to do so are at irs.gov.
Yes,
okay.
Exactly.
What's the normal time frame for when someone with veteran, Social Security, and railroad retirement benefits should expect their economic impact payment?
Well, that depends. If someone files an income tax return, then their economic impact payment will follow their tax return, not their benefits from the VA or from Social Security or railroad retirement. However, if they're not normally tax return files, many of those people, again, the veterans, the Social Security recipients, and the railroad retirement benefit recipients, many of those have already received their payment. However, the IRS does expect to issue the bulk of those payments before the end of this month, maybe a little bit into the 1st of June.
Okay, so soon.
Yes, very soon.
Yes. So for people who've already submitted their 2019 tax returns and haven't received their refunds yet, what would be the processing time for those refunds?
So now we're talking about tax return refunds, not the economic impact payments. And if they filed their tax return electronically, then they should still expect to receive that refund within 21 days of the date that return was accepted electronically. If they filed on paper, it's just going to take more time. As I mentioned earlier, the IRS has not begun processing paper returns that were received in the last couple of months. So as soon as we're able to restaff our service centers better and get more people in there to open the mail and start processing that paper, we'll get it done. But it will definitely take more time, and I cannot put a time frame on that, as we can't on many things with this coronavirus.
Yep, but people should not try to refile electronically if they already mailed it.
No, they really shouldn't. That just will cause notices for them later down the road if they were to try to file a second return. It might even scare us to think that there might be identity theft involved.
Okay. Now, if someone did not receive a payment for a qualifying dependent, this is back to the economic impact payments, and they didn't receive one for a qualifying dependent under the CARES Act, what should they do?
Now, since the economic impact payment is actually an advance of a credit for tax year 2020, then our current guidance suggests that they wait and just claim that additional payment on their 2020 income tax return when they file in 2021. I know that's not the ideal solution. However, it's the only one we have right now. So if a better solution does arise, we will definitely update that on the frequently asked questions page.
Okay, that's really helpful. And the frequently asked questions page is available where?
That is on irs.gov/coronavirus. On that page, you'll be able to see a link to the economic impact payments, and from there, you'll get all kinds of answers to your questions.
Okay, so for folks falling into that circumstance, just continue to watch the IRS website because more information might become available over the next weeks and months. Now, if someone made too much money in 2018 and 2019 to qualify for the payment, but they anticipate 2020's income would qualify for their payment, what should they do?
Again, since the economic impact payment is actually an advance of a credit for tax year 2020, if eligible, when they file their 2020 tax return, they should be able to claim that payment on that return and receive that money in 2021 when they file.
Okay, so it'll get reconciled when they file their taxes.
Yes.
Okay, so we have lots of activity on our Facebook chat. If folks have questions, they've been listening to the conversation, you can go ahead and put your comments in the box, because I'm going to start going through some of the questions that we have that Susan can help us with now. So Rick asked if the tax refunds from 2019 are being delayed by the impact payments. And Rick, we heard Susan say that they are not processing tax refunds for returns filed by mail, that they have not begun processing those tax returns. But if you were filed electronically, then the refunds that you might be owed should be getting processed within 21 days. Isn't that right, Susan?
Yes, that's exactly right.
Okay. Sandra Joe had a question about utility bills, and I don't think that that's IRS, right?
No, there's nothing in the coronavirus, the CARES Act that applies to utility bills at this time that I'm aware of.
Okay, for the IRS, yep. Now, there's a question from Mark. As a non-filer, I received an instant rejection notice when utilizing the portal on the Internal Revenue Service website. The notice indicated that I needed an IP PIN number and error number 118. The issue here is if you were a non-filer, you would not have a PIN number, and he still has not received the stimulus check. What should he do?
Mark, if it's asking for your IP PIN, then that means you may have either signed up to get one in the past or you've experienced identity theft in the past. And if that's the case, you need to go to the IRS website and put in the search box, get NAN IP PIN. And that will take you to a place where you can retrieve your IP PIN in order to e-file your return. And unfortunately, if all else fails, you can still print that paper return from the non-filer portal, and you'll be able to mail that in. But like I said earlier, those paper returns will take much longer to process. So if you can get that IP PIN and put it in, you will definitely rush your payment.
Thank you. Now, Charlie made a comment saying that he hadn't received his economic impact payment, but we had that as part of that was like the first question that we asked. Do you want to briefly go over that one more time, what people should do?
Sure. Charlie, it would be best if you go to irs.gov. At the top of the screen, there's two options. One of them is the non-filer tool, and one of them, it says Get My Payment. If you click on that Get My Payment tool, it's going to ask for just a few pieces of information. You put your information in, and it should provide you with one of two things. Hopefully, it'll give you the date that your payment's going to be sent and how it will be sent. But if it does not provide that, it will say payment status not available. And it says payment status not available up until the time that your payment is being scheduled. So just because it says not available doesn't mean you're not eligible or you will not receive your payment. It just means we haven't got to your name on the schedule yet.
Thank you. Sarah says many lower income filers have had their returns placed on a 60-day hold in order to verify their identity, which is causing a delay in receiving refunds and economic impact payments. Why are lower income tax filers who need the money the most targeted at a greater rate than those in higher income brackets?
I can't really, I don't really understand why some returns get selected or not. But one of the things the IRS looks at on every tax return is whether or not the tax return that you submit to the IRS matches the information that's submitted by payers, such as the W-2 forms that your employer send and things like that. And if it doesn't match for whatever reason, maybe you used your check stub to file your tax return, or maybe your employer files their W-2s on paper, so they're not in the Social Security system quick enough to get them to the IRS. So I don't think we're really targeting any specific income group, but we are looking to make sure that the people file tax returns are filing accurate tax returns before refunds and credits are being released. So again, I don't think it's this particular group that's being targeted, but that's some of the reasons why it might be held up.
Thank you. Diane asked, if you're dependent on someone else's taxes, do you get a stimulus check?
Diane, great question. Thank you for asking it, because there are several things that require you to be eligible for an economic impact payment. You have to be a U.S. citizen or resident alien. You have to have a valid Social Security number. Your income has to be below certain limits, and you have to not be claimed as a dependent on someone else's tax return. So if you're claimed as a dependent, then you're not eligible for an economic impact payment. With that said, if for the tax year 2020, remember I said it's an advance credit. So if for tax year 2020 you are no longer eligible to be claimed as a dependent on someone's tax return, you may be eligible for a credit when you file your 2020 tax return in 2021.
Excellent, thank you. Dan W. had a question about his Social Security payment and why didn't he get a CARES Act check by direct deposit or paper check. Dan, we had gone through how to check the status of your payment on the IRS website, and we would encourage you to go and check that out. Do you have anything else to add on that one, Susan?
Just that some people were thinking that the stimulus payment, the economic impact payment, would be in the same payment as their normal Social Security payments, and they do not come together as one payment. The economic impact payment is a separate payment from your Social Security benefits. Also, if you file a tax return, it's going to file your tax return. So if you don't normally get a refund on your tax return, then it might be a paper check rather than direct deposit.
Okay. Judy said that she returned her tax return by mail on March 16th and can't find anything online indicating that it's been worked on. As Susan outlined, they've not begun processing the mailed tax returns yet. And so that's why you wouldn't see it online. Isn't that right, Susan?
That's exactly right.
Okay. Mina says, we've not received our stimulus check yet. We're senior citizens over 70. How and when will we receive our check? we've been paying federal taxes past few years. We're receiving Social Security with direct deposit. So would that be enough for the IRS to do direct deposit? Otherwise, how do we send our bank information?
Mina, that's another good question. Since you file tax returns, it will follow your tax return, and there is no longer a way for you to send the IRS your bank information. So you will unfortunately have to wait for your paper check. But you should be able to find it on the Get My Payment tool, which updates every day. So if it says payment status not available today, check again tomorrow.
Okay. Now, Tom has a related question to one we just asked. It's a little inverse, though. My wife and I electronically filed our 2019 return in March. We have not received our refund as of yet. The IRS website says pending. As a result, we've not received our stimulus check either. We have direct deposit. What could be the delay? It's well past 21 days.
Yes, Tom, that's an interesting case. As long as you're sure that electronic return was accepted, you might want to reach out to the IRS. As I said earlier, some of our toll-free lines are now open, so you could call, I always say 1-800-TAX form, but it's 1-800-TAX-1040, 1-800-829-1040, and let someone look into that.
Thank you. Okay, so maybe my team can put that in the chat box too, so that people have that phone number handy. Okay, so Charlie says he's on SSDI, and so what does he do since he doesn't have taxes? And so we covered that a little bit earlier in the conversation, but there was a website people are supposed to visit, right?
Yes. The number one thing, Charlie, if you're getting Social Security and you were receiving that before January 1st of this year, you will automatically get your payment. So you really don't have to do anything. But if you want to check on it, you can go to the IRS website, irs.gov, and at the top of the page, click on Get My Payment, and it will provide you more information.
Okay. I'm going to speed up. Some of these are duplicative, so I'm going to encourage everybody leaving a question that's tax related or stimulus check related. If I don't get to it, we've answered it. And so I want to encourage you when the video is available to watch, because we want to get through everybody's questions while we still have Susan on the line. Sarah says she's filed electronically. She was told by the IRS it was in further review due to misinformation from her previous employer. She's been waiting for her refund since March. Is that another 1-800-TAX-1040?
Yes, they could call and check on it. Sarah, that's probably one of those, like you said, misinformation from your previous employer, where we have to verify that the tax return and the W-2s match. So you can reach out to the phone number 1-800-829-1040, and they can get you to the right unit to address that.
Okay, so there's a sort of a few with these kind of real specialized questions. Someone filed in January and not seeing anything. Sent, I guess the IRS responded back to Donna in February, and then, she sent more information and still nothing. Maybe she should follow up with the 1-800-TAX-1040.
Yes, that one, January. That's a little bit before coronavirus, I do believe. So definitely reach out. And if the case qualifies, they may refer you over to our taxpayer advocate service, who may be able to look into that more for you.
Okay. Did you want to say anything more about when you think the IRS will begin processing the mail-in returns?
I would love to be able to say when, but we just don't know. We're trying to get some people back into our service centers now, but you have to realize a service center is kind of like a factory. People are very close together in there. So with the social distancing requirements, and state and local jurisdiction requirements too, and mandates, it's kind of hard to give a time frame on any particular hope for processing of paper. Although we've got people there. We're holding that mail. We're storing it until we can, fully open operations again.
Okay. Denise says, why are my children getting left off of any stimulus? My 2 college girls can't get it, and I don't get anything for my 17-year-old. Isn't it under 17? So, we're qualifying.
Yes. For the CARES Act, the way the CARES Act was written, We were required to follow the CARES Act, and the CARES Act says under 17, dependents under 17. So
So
the
Denise,
IRS usually follows. I'm sorry.
go ahead.
I was just going to say the IRS just follows the law as it was written.
And Denise, we have made a correction in the HEROES Act, which we just voted on last Friday, to allow for dependent children and dependent adults to be eligible for those payments. But that is still pending Senate action. Okay, so there seems to be like a lot of these, people who filed early. So Jessica, I did mine on February 2nd, had a review for 60 days, still waiting, but I got my stimulus check, but when will I get my refund check? So she filed in February, had a 60-day review, and is waiting for her refund, but got a stimulus.
Yes, because, well, we're glad that the stimulus came out, but we are waiting, for all of our call sites to open up. Be patient with us. Call the 800-829-1040 number. And like I told the earlier person with a question, if the case qualifies for taxpayer advocate service criteria, they can send that over to the taxpayer advocate, because you shouldn't have to wait longer than what you were told you would have to wait for your refund.
Okay. Pamela says, hi, Lauren. I received Social Security disability. I was claimed on someone's 2019 taxes, but come to find out they couldn't claim me, so they took me off. Will I be able to get a stimulus check?
Well, here's the thing. They found out they couldn't claim you, so they took you off, which means they filed an amended tax return, which is going to be filed on paper, because you cannot electronically file an amended tax return. That not only is the fact that it's paper, normally those amended tax returns take 12 to 16 weeks to process, and then you add to the fact that we haven't been able to open our mail for the last 2 months. Mm-hmm. It may not happen before the end of the year. If that's the case, again, it is an advance credit for tax year 2020, so you may be able to claim that on the 2020 tax return when you file in 2021, if it's not resolved before the end of the year.
Okay. Carrie says, my son did not receive his payment, and his bank account has changed since filing his taxes. The system still shows no updates on when he should receive his payment.
So he's a paper. I'm sorry, I lost the sound for just a minute there.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
The son didn't receive his payment, and the bank account has changed since he filed his taxes, but the system doesn't have any updates. You said that, you can go online and see when it had been scheduled.
Right.
So just wonder if you can comment on that.
Yes, if the bank account is closed, then the bank will return that payment to the IRS, and it will be rescheduled as a paper check. That usually takes a few weeks to update in the IRS system, time for the payment to get back into the system, and time for the IRS to schedule it to be reissued as a paper check. So keep checking the Get My Payment system. That should update within like 3 weeks of the date that your original payment was sent, 3 to 4 weeks.
Okay. And then Michelle says, if my taxes are in review, will this hold up my economic impact payment?
I'm going to use my favorite IRS word here. Generally, no, it should not. If you filed 2018 and 2019 and your 2019 has not completed processing yet, then your payment should be based on your 2018 income tax return.
Okay. Julia says, what's the time frame for corrections of stimulus checks that were sent by mistake to child support debt for those that did file the injured spouse form with their taxes?
That's a good question. We did update one of our frequently asked questions on the IRS website, and it addresses this specific situation. So the only federal debt or federal or state debt that economic impact payment can be offset for is child support. Mm-hmm. And if two couples if two people who are a couple file jointly and one of them owes child support, then someone can file what we call an injured spouse form to allow the spouse that doesn't owe the debt to claim their part of the refund. So if someone filed that form with their tax return, then that form will still apply to their economic impact payment as well. However, there was some confusion between the IRS and the Bureau of Fiscal Services and the Child Support Enforcement Agency. So the IRS is working with those two agencies to try to get those payments recaptured from the Child Support Office and sent back to the injured spouse. I know your question was time frame. Mm-hmm. We are still trying to work that out, so I can't give an exact time frame, but hopefully it shouldn't take too much longer.
Okay. Melissa says, my daughter filed and received her return electronically prior to any COVID impact. When we checked on her stimulus check status, it says it was mailed on April 24th, but they don't know where it was mailed, and she's not sure why she hasn't received her payment. Now, another daughter received her stimulus check, and that check was mailed May 8th, and they say it's not making any sense, and the IRS isn't helping. Do you have any advice?
Yes, she should look at a copy of her tax return, because that's where we would have obtained the address on where to send her economic impact payment. So if there's a typo or something in her address, she will want to make sure that she goes to the post office either online or in person and updates her address. When the IRS receives that paper check back, if the address was wrong, the post office will return it to the IRS. So when we receive that back, we will check the tax return first. If it's that same address, then we'll check with the post office to see if there's been a correction in the address. Okay. If all else fails, then she can call 1-800-829-1040 and talk to an account assistant and get her address updated.
Okay. Paula says she put her information on the IRS page on April 15th and didn't have a date for the stimulus check in terms of it being mailed out. And I think that what she should do is go back and check today, because you said that that system is updated every day. Isn't that right?
Yes. Yes, keep checking it every day. As soon as we have an update to when a payment will be sent, the system will update. And it is updated, like you said, every day.
Okay. Do we have to file to get our stimulus checks? This is from Robin, who says, we have not gotten a stimulus check. We didn't think we had to file for it, but we filed our taxes and they have cashed our check to them. So she had to pay, no return. Do we have to file to get a stimulus check?
Robin, if you file tax returns, there's nothing else that you need to do to claim your economic impact payment. If you're eligible, which means your income's below those certain amounts and you have a Social Security number and you're not claimed as a dependent, then you will automatically receive your economic impact payment. Since you said that you owed taxes and the IRS has cashed your check, so you owed and you paid, then that means we don't have the direct deposit information on file for you, so you will be receiving a paper check.
Okay. Chris has a question. If a dependent child was 16 in 2018, which is the last time that they filed, right? So that year's filing is the basis for the stimulus payment. Would the family get a stimulus payment or not? Because that child is now 17, but they haven't filed this year's taxes. Does that make sense?
Yes. So the child was still 16 and 18, but turned 17 in 2019. Is what I'm understanding.
Right.
If that's the case, it's possible. If you haven't filed for 2019 yet, the IRS would use your 2018 return to determine your eligibility for an economic impact payment. So it is possible that you would receive that $500 for that qualifying child.
Okay. Robert says, my wife and I are on Social Security with auto deposit. We've not filed taxes for the past few years. His wife received her economic impact payment, but I've not received mine. I is Robert. I've tried online several times to check, but have been unable to get any information. What can I do?
Robert, it may be that your wife's name came up before yours for some reason. Those payments to Social Security beneficiaries are coming out throughout the end of the month. So just keep checking every day. As soon as yours is scheduled, it should be reflected on the Get My Payment tool on irs.gov.
Okay, Brad says if someone was alive when the act issuing the stimulus check, but then dies prior to the check being direct deposited, must the check be returned?
Robert, we have asked for additional guidance related to the date of death. We're hearing this question quite a bit. Does the IRS website says before the payment is received, but we've had some people ask that question. Well, what about if the check was direct deposit, or if it was a paper check, or the CARES Act? So we have asked for clarifying guidance from Treasury to give us more definition of the date that might apply. So keep checking irs.gov for additional guidance on that.
Okay. And then Margaret says, I went to the IRS Get My Payment site and filled out my checking info. Followed up and saw that my check was deposited. I checked with the bank and reviewed my entries, and I'm a fool and transposed a number. I did see in the questions that if account is changed or if the account is changed, a different paper check will be issued. But Margaret wants to know, have I moved to the back of the list? So basically, does she have to wait because of this mistake with her bank account?
No, Margaret, you have not been moved to the back of the list. It's going to be like the one before. If the bank rejects the direct deposit, then it will flip to a paper check, and that process takes generally 3 to 4 weeks. So we have to get the payment back to the IRS and then order the check. But you won't be moved to the bottom of the list. It will come in the 3-week period after the bank rejects the deposit back to the IRS.
Okay. And then Robin had a question. We covered this earlier. When will the stimulus checks be mailed to people who qualify and don't have direct deposit? And it's my understanding that those will be ongoing, right? That they'll be mailed out?
Yes. Yes, these payments will actually be coming out through the end of the year. So some people might not file a tax return until July 15th. And that might be the first time they filed a tax return. So those folks won't get it till later in probably July or August. So they will continue on throughout the end of 2020.
Okay. Susan, we have a few more minutes left with you. Just wondering if you wanted to sum up anything that we've covered today. There's a lot of repeat questions or have any concluding comments that you'd like to offer our community here in Northern Illinois.
I just want you all to know that the IRS is working diligently to get these payments out. I mentioned when I started that I've been with the IRS for over 30 years, so I've been through this before. I was here when the payments came out in 2000 and in 2008. This is the fastest that the IRS has ever been able to do this. The CARES Act was signed on March 27th, and the IRS had payments in people's hands by April 15th. So 2 weeks we've been able to do this. So some of this is we've done it really fast, but there's more to be done, and we are working as hard and fast as we can in the most challenging situation the IRS has ever been in. We've never had half of our workforce unable to work before. So it's a challenging time. We just ask that you be patient. Please use the IRS website as a tool, a wealth of information on the website, and especially on irs.gov/coronavirus. That's where you're going to find the answers to many, many of your questions. Also keep in mind that although our phone lines are starting to open back up, we are still on limited staff, so be patient. You might want to call early in the morning or later in the evening. Most of our phone lines are open 7 to 7. So just be patient and keep checking our website for more information. And Congresswoman, I just want to also say how much I appreciate your staff for all the work that they have been doing on behalf of the IRS. They are getting a lot of questions since your constituents can't necessarily get in touch with the IRS over the last couple of months. They've been fielding a lot of questions, and the IRS really appreciates all that they've been doing to help as well. So I want to thank you all again for this opportunity. Everyone, please stay safe, and just remember that irs.gov/coronavirus has a wealth of information available for you.
Well, thank you, Susan, for staying on the line with us for 40 minutes. We answered a lot of questions. We know that these payments, the economic impact payments, are eagerly anticipated for so many families across our community. The economic crisis that has resulted from the pandemic is one that was just unexpected for so many people. And these funds are incredibly helpful. And we appreciate all the work that you and your colleagues are doing to help provide for the American people during this really challenging time. Thank you, and thanks for being willing to answer our questions live. I know that people really appreciate it. We're getting lots of thank you messages in the chat box as well. So grateful for all you do. We'll let you get back to your other things that you have to do today. And thanks again. My team is going to upload this video for everybody who may have joined our conversation late and want to hear the answers to the questions that you see in the chat box, because we know that people have a variety of different circumstances, but the resources available, whether it's the phone line, the IRS website, the irs.gov/coronavirus website, or the different tools that Susan described for us, are available to all of us. And then we also obviously invite you, or at least all of our 14th district residents, to reach out to our office, 630-549-2190. I've gotten a sense from some of the comments during today's discussion that we have some people listening to the conversation, but who don't live here in Northern Illinois in our 14th district, 14th congressional district, and that's fine. Your member of Congress should be able to help answer your questions one-on-one too. So if you have questions and don't live in this community, reach out to your member of Congress. They can help troubleshoot some of these issues for you as well. Thanks again, Susan. We appreciate you. I wanted to just answer a few of the other questions that were posed that were not related to the IRS, because we know that there's a lot going on during this time. There was a question about rent and mortgage assistance in the CARES Act. And I think that what's really important for people to know is that the CARES Act says that you can't be evicted or your home be foreclosed upon if you have a federally backed loan or if your landlord has a federal loan. And so there are tools available. My team is going to put the link in the chat for you to be able to get more information on the renters and homeowners assistance. So that's one question I remember seeing. And the other, let's see, it's buried in here now. I think what we'll do is just invite folks to reach out to our office. I'm not seeing non-COVID question, I'm sorry, non-IRS questions in our chat anymore, but that could be something on my end. So here's what I'll do. Just say, reach out to our office. You can send us an email at underwood.house.gov or call us at 630-549-2190. And we're answering questions 7 days a week. We're responding to emails 7 days a week. And, want to make sure that you're getting the answers to what you need. Remember that we are here to serve the 7 counties in the 14th district, McHenry, Lake, Kane, Kendall, DeKalb, DuPage, and Will. And so if you don't live in our 14th district community, your member of Congress is just as enthusiastic about serving you. So we would invite you to be in touch with their office. With that, I'll say thank you all so much for joining our Facebook Live Town Hall to talk about the economic impact payments. We look forward to having another town hall session again soon to answer more questions. I encourage you all to stay safe, to take good care of yourselves, continue to follow the best advice coming from our leading scientists, public health experts across our state and across our country. And, with the Memorial Day holiday coming up this weekend, please, please, please take good care of yourselves. Okay, see you all soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.